Coming up, from the Nets rookies outlook to potential trades to a win-loss projection, I'll give you my Nets bold predictions for the 2025-26 campaign right now.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. And on today's show, we've got several bold predictions for you. I'm going to be joined by CJ Holmes of the New York Daily News to give our bold predictions for the 2025-26 campaign. We'll touch on the Nets rookies, focusing on Egor Demin, also some potential trade candidates, and a disagreement about where we think the Nets are going to fall in the standings this year. Joining the pod now, we got CJ Holmes of the New York Daily News. And CJ, it is the eve of the regular season. Actually, it is the start of the regular season for some teams, but the Brooklyn Nets regular season will get underway tomorrow when they play the Charlotte Hornets. And with that, we got a bold prediction episode. We both got some bold predictions for the 2025-26 campaign, and we're going to rattle them off one after another. But as the guest on the show, you get first dibs. So lay it on me, your top bold prediction for the Nets 2025-26 campaign.
Yeah, man, I think this team is going to be a little more successful than projected. I see this as another year where, a strong start and then maybe they wane off in the win column, as we get past the trade deadline, maybe let go some of these veterans and let the young guys play. But I see the Nets as a 30 to 35 win team. I know a lot of people out there, not a lot of people out there project to win, 20.5 games or something like that. So, but, I think the strength of Jordi Fernandez is going to, win this team more games than originally thought. And, as the lottery showed last season, tanking really doesn't matter, right? So, I say go out there, win as many games as you can, and let the chips fall where they may.
All right, I disagree with you on multiple fronts there. First, I think that this Nets team is going to be...
It's a bold prediction, Erik. Like,
I thought about going somewhere in that win, in how many games will they win, going in that direction with one of my takes, and I was going to say that the Nets will finish under their win projection, which I guess would be a bold prediction, but I think that this team is going to be worse than they were last season. You think they're going to be better. So make the case. Why do you think that this Nets team is going to be more successful in the win column than last year's squad was?
Simple, because Jordi Fernandez is going to tolerate anything less than this team's best. I mean, they won a handful of games last year purely off the strength of his coaching and his guidance and his leadership as the head coach of this team. Maybe that's a loose... Maybe that's like a loose hinge to put my bold bet upon, but that's just how I see it.
Yeah, and if you're going to bet on something for why this team is going to exceed expectations, I think it would be Jordi Fernandez, because we saw last year that the guy can really coach. And I think that that's kind of a unanimous take around the NBA at this point. But I would say that I feel like how well Jordi Fernandez coached this team last year spooked the Nets a little bit. And I think that they took some strides to handicap this roster with that in mind. And I've been pretty, solid on this take for a while now, that I just think the transfer of ball handling responsibilities, like you touched on the hot start that they had last year, transferring the ball handling responsibilities from Dennis Schroeder to Egor Demin, Ben Suraf, maybe Nolan Schroeder. I just think that that's a steep drop-off that is going to be difficult to overcome. But if somebody can overcome it, maybe it's Jordi Fernandez, and maybe he knows how to put this team in a position to win despite that. I also think there were some downgrades across the roster besides that. But, yeah, so I'll counter and I'll say my first bold prediction is I think that the Nets are going to go under their win projection, which is 20.5 or 19.5. I'll say the Nets win 20 games this season. And I think that I understand where you're coming from, and I think if you leave the roster as it is right now, I could see the Nets finishing somewhere around where they finished last season, which was, 26 wins? Because they still have some guys who can play. They have Cam Thomas. They have, obviously, Michael Porter Jr., Terrence Mann, Zaire, some of the other guys that they've brought in, maybe these rookies that exceed expectations. But I think that this roster is going to look differently towards the end of the season than it was this year. I think that the Nets are in on the tank this year. And I think that, you said, tanking doesn't guarantee you anything, and that is true. but you still got to play the percentages, or you still can play the percentages. And the further up that you get into those lottery standings, you maximize your chances of landing a top pick. And you also increase your floor, because the worst record can only fall to 5th, 2nd, 6th, 3rd, 7th, and so on. So I think that as the season progresses, if the Nets are winning like they did last year, I think you might see them pull the ripcord earlier and more aggressively, whether that be trades, whether that be sitting guys. What is your take on that? Do you see this playing out differently? And was that part of your prediction?
No, I mean, I could definitely see it playing out that way. But in my predictions, like, it's going to be a strong start, right? And that's why I said after the trade deadline, I think that's when the bulk of the losing is going to occur. And the owner Josiah, he didn't mince words in that interview a couple weeks back. So it seems like there's organizational understanding and everyone's on the same page of how this season will proceed. So I definitely hear where you're coming from, and I wouldn't be surprised if it plays out that way.
All right, give me your next bold prediction. What do you got?
My next bold prediction is that Egor Demin makes the all rookie team.
Okay. I had this tentatively as one. I was going to see how the episode played out, but okay. Make the case. I mean, Egor obviously came in. He had an impressive rookie debut, but a player that, the pick was much maligned. There were a lot of questions about what he is and what he can be in the NBA moving forward. So what have you seen from him that convinces you that he can have that kind of year?
Yeah, man. Egor was the 8th overall pick. He's going to be on the court a lot. He's going to have the ball in his hands. And if any of that creativity that he showcased at BYU transfers over to the NBA, then he's going to be quite the playmaker at this level with his, size and handle. The Nets haven't had, I don't think the Nets have ever had an all rookie player under Sean Marks. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I don't think they've ever had an all rookie player under Sean Marks. And this is their first lottery pick in 15 years. So, I think a combination of his usage and playmaking, if things translate properly, will make him one of the better rookie guards in the league this season.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that there's a lot of variables that could play into this. But this is a bold predictions episode, and I do see an upside in Egor's game where that could play out, and that is within the realistic range of outcomes. You look at Egor. I mean, there were 2 questions about him coming into the league. 2 major questions or red flags. One of them was the 3-point shooting. And up to this point, extremely small sample size, but the 3-point shooting has looked pure. Like, he shot close to 44% in summer league on almost 8 attempts per game. Obviously only 3 appearances, but it looked confident and pure. First preseason appearance, 2 of 3 from 3, pulling up off the dribble, knocking down corner threes. Everything we've heard is that he shot the cover off the ball in all of his Nets workouts, all of his pro days, all those things along those lines. So if he answers that question, and then he's able to tighten up the handle, he's able to develop his body a little, get downhill, let those playmaking gifts shine, I definitely could see, a possibility where he has just an extremely high usage, as you said, and voters look at him and he has some of the flashy passes. He's knocking down threes off the dribble and off the ball. And then I think the defensive end of the floor has been pretty slept on. Like, you look at what he did. I talked about this on my pod yesterday against the Raptors in that game. He had several plays where it was clear, like, that 6'9" frame, the want to that he has, also the understanding of defensive rotations. Like, I think that that's going to make him a plus on the defensive end of the floor. And if you have that kind of 2-way impact on that kind of usage, you're going to be in play for an all-rookie team. There's going to be no shortage of opportunity for Egor Demin this season. But we got some more bold predictions, some potential trades. We also got some other things on some guys up and down the roster. So we'll continue the episode with all that after a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Playing Prize Picks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. Guys, I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute, and Prize Picks just added stacks. So if you want to ride with the player, you can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with one click. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you throughout your entire neighborhood. Guys, I love that with Built. Your rent finally works for you. You're earning points every month on something that you already have to pay. Guys, whether you're grabbing food or at your favorite local restaurant or heading to the gym, you're still earning rewards. Built makes everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. So turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's JOINBILT.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use that link so they know we sent you. Coming back from the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, talking with CJ Holmes of the New York Daily News, giving our Nets bold predictions for the 2025-26 campaign. CJ, I'm going to say that Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton are traded in season. I'm going to say that both of those guys are on the move at the deadline, if not before the deadline. And you look at this Nets team, I mean, they're a team that obviously has a lot of veterans on this roster. I said that I feel like this is going to be a more aggressive season in terms of the tank compared to what we saw last year. And a lot of that is rooted in the fact that the Nets didn't see much of a payoff for their trade with the Houston Rockets. You know, they gave up those 4 first-round picks in order to get back their 2025 and 2026 first-round picks last season. And one of those 4 picks was the Phoenix Suns 2025 first rounder. That pick ended up 10th. The Nets only ended up 8th. And, you know, when you have that minuscule of a payoff early on, if they, you know, kind of exceed expectations again this year, they get a pick that's towards the latter half of the top 10 again, they miss out on a transcendent player, like that trade is going to get crushed. So I think that there's going to be more urgency, and I think that that could result in trades. And if you're looking at 2 candidates who I think are very movable, and it makes sense for a reason with the scenario that they could be moved, Cam Thomas and Nick Claxton, I think both fit that bill. If you start with Thomas, the negotiations obviously fizzled out. I've talked about it numerous times on this show, but I just think that relationship is past the point of repair. I think the gap between what Thomas wants and what the Nets want is too big a gap for them to bridge, and I don't see either of them coming off that stance enough to meet close in the middle. And, you know, I think that it's going to be a situation where if Cam Thomas comes out firing and he's helping the Nets exceed expectations with what he can do offensively, we might get into the season. The Nets look around, they say, hey, we don't have this guy in our future plans at the money that he wants. He's taking reps away from our rookie guys. He's helping this team be more competitive offensively than we need it to be. I just think that the goals on both ends of the spectrum are very different right now. And if the Nets don't see him as a piece moving forward, they don't have that much incentive to feature him. So I think they could work with his representatives to find a destination that he deems desirable. So before we get to Nick Claxton, what do you think about that Cam Thomas idea that I floated there?
Yeah, man. I think it makes sense. And, you know, if Thomas does play well to start the year and that relationship is damaged beyond repair, it does make sense to move him while there's still value for him instead of waiting and letting him walk for nothing. You know, I could also see a guy like Nick Claxton getting moved. You know, he was floated around in rumors over the summer. Nothing ever materialized. But, you know, the Nets, still have something in Day'Ron Sharpe. They have to find a way to get Danny Wolf on the court and get him minutes. So, I definitely agree with where you're coming from.
Yeah, and on Claxton, like, I just think we're at a point now where the Nets, they know what he is. Like, I know that he had the breakout 2022-23 campaign. It's kind of ticked down over the last 2 seasons. We had the back injury, but I think that there's enough of a sample size where the Nets have an idea of what he is and what he's going to be. And, you know, I'm not necessarily sure that he fits the timeline. Like, sure, he's young enough, going to be 27 this season. He's young enough to be a part of this next iteration. But we've seen that Sean Marks has been capable and able to backfill the center position through the draft. He got Jared Allen late in the early 20s. He then got Day'Ron Sharpe and Nick Claxton in the late 20s to early second round. Now he gets Danny Wolf. And that's a position where, with that track record of finding success at that spot, and I don't think it's all too difficult a spot to fill, you know, if you have an eye for those talent in the draft or on the free agent market or wherever. I'm not sure that the Nets want to allocate the kind of money that they're paying Nick Claxton to long-term if they have cheaper alternatives like Day'Ron Sharpe or like whoever they can get in the draft, and also a Danny Wolf coming in. I mean, I also just think that, you know, we saw it last year, having Claxton and having Day'Ron Sharpe, you know, 48 minutes of capable center play, that's a hindrance to tanking. And if you can remove one of those guys from the equation, which will in turn, make you less competitive, improve your tank, you also get more minutes for Danny Wolf in that scenario, which is going to bolster his development. Because let's not forget, Danny Wolf is 21 years old. Like, he's not 19 like the rest of these rookies. So you're going to want to get him minutes sooner rather than later. And he looks like he's a pretty NBA ready. I mean, like, I don't think he's ready necessarily to make an impact on like a contending team, but he has NBA skills that I think can play. So what do you think about that conversation? Do you think that Danny Wolf, do you see him as being a guy who comes in and gets more minutes as the year progresses?
Yes, I think Danny's a guy who might, start off, in Long Island. But again, we talked about it already. As the season progresses, I can definitely see, the Nets making some moves, shaking up their front court in order to slide a guy like him into the rotation. And while we're on the subject of potential trades, also keep an eye on guys like Haywood Highsmith and Terrence Mann. I know Highsmith is hurt right now, but both of those forwards are, very productive players within their roles, very niche guys who, can contribute something at both ends of the floor. I think the Nets bought these guys in, with the idea in mind to eventually flip them at some point down the road. So, while keeping an eye on guys like Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, also keep an eye on Haywood Highsmith and Terrence Mann as we inch closer to the trade deadline.
Yeah, Highsmith, definitely a guy. I think that the Nets acquired him. They got the second round pick alongside him.
I mean, they kept him over. I think they kept him over Buffkin for a reason because, if you look at these two guys, who can you flip, right? I think Highsmith has more value.
Definitely. And they kept him over Buffkin and Derek Whitehead. And I think that they made that trade. They got a second round pick alongside him and also helped them reach the second salary floor. But they made that trade, I think, with the idea that if this guy comes back healthy, he might have some flip value at the deadline. And we end up getting two second round picks, out of this deal for a guy that was only on a $5.6 million expiring contract. So I definitely see that as a, realistic outcome. And then the other guys like Terrence Mann, I could see it if he plays well, but it might take a little bit of an extended runway of him producing in order for him to, show that he's worth another team taking on that contract. So Terrence Mann, yeah, he's definitely a guy to watch out for, and we'll see how that progresses his situation, whether he can revitalize his value a little bit and whether the Nets retain him or they see him as a piece that they can potentially flip maybe for an expiring contract and further bolster their financial flexibility moving forward. We got a couple more bold predictions, one surrounding the Nets rookies, and I know CJ's got one in the chamber also, so we'll give you both of those when we close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rougeit comes in. Rougeit.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougeit makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms. No in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matters. Visit RUGIET.com/LockedOnNBA to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know we sent you. Rougeit, stop making excuses and start making moves. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, talking with CJ Holmes of the New York Daily News, giving our Nets bold predictions for the 2025-26 campaign. CJ, I know you got one more. I got one more. You go first, and then I'll give one and close it out.
Michael Porter Jr. joins the 50-40-90 club this year.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of got this idea watching that Toronto game. 34 points, all jumpers, made it look effortless. And, I know obviously he's not playing with Nikola Jokic anymore, but, he comes to Brooklyn with something to prove, and he's going to be surrounded by young guards who are going to have no choice but to get him the ball in advantageous situations. So I predict and envision a hyper-efficient season from Michael Porter Jr., and, if he's able to do that, then, his value, then the Nets can make a decision on if he's a guy, worth keeping around for the future, or, that bolsters his value to move him later down the line.
Yeah, I don't even know how bold that might be because MPJ, he's been pretty close to 50-40-90, hasn't he? I'm looking at the numbers right now. All right, he's never quite been there, but I mean, he's at 50% for his career, 40.6% from three. The free throw shooting might be the thing that he has to up the most to get there. He's at 79.5% for his career. But I get it is bold from the sense that he's stepping into a new role and he's having to get acclimate to a new situation. But I think we've seen like Jordan Fernandez, man, he knows what he's doing offensively with some of these guys. And Michael Porter Jr. obviously is a guy that he has familiarity with going back to his days as an assistant coach with the Nuggets. And I think that he does know how to use Michael, in the right way. Like I think MPJ was coming in here, maybe thought like, I'm going to be handling the ball more. I'm going to be able to get in my bag. Like I'm going to be handling in the pick and roll and isolation. And I don't know. I don't think like necessarily maybe Jordy shut that down. But when we asked him about it, he was like, I don't envision Mike, dribbling the ball a ton because that's not what he's strong at. We see, use him more off the ball. And we've seen like Jordy's able to do that. He did a great job of that with Cam Johnson last season, although I think CJ, did a little bit more in some isolation and pick and roll situations that maybe MPJ will, compared to maybe what MPJ will do this season. But he knows how to get these guys open. And MPJ, you said it, he does not really need any space to get his shots off. I mean, he can shoot over anybody. I saw a stat. I think he has like the second or third highest release point in the NBA, and he is efficient with those jumpers. And I think that, Egor Demin and these Nets rookies are going to be looking for him whenever they can. I got one more bold prediction, and it kind of, I think, goes along with my prediction that the Nets go under their win total, and that is that the Nets lead the league in turnovers this year. And I don't that might not even be that bold if people watch the preseason finale against the Raptors, but I just think the data and the sample size of rookie point guards stepping into this kind of workload, it usually looks pretty ugly. And I think that we saw that in the preseason finale outside of Egor Demin, and he had, 1 assist to 2 turnovers. So, we'll see, like it's nothing to write home about, but I did think he looked comfortable initiating offense. Ben Surratt has looked comfortable. That Toronto game, though, was his biggest test, and he had a few bad turnovers in that game. And I think that Nolan Schroeder, it was pretty rough. And he's going to be in the G League, I think, to open the year. But I think just the workload that's going to be put on, Egor Demin and Ben Surratt. And also this intensity is going to tick up from the preseason to the regular season. We're going to have dudes who, when they're doing their brief like regular season game scouting, these DCs are going to be like, go after these dudes, pressure these dudes 3/4 full court, get into their stuff, see if they can handle it. And I think that, they're going to be tested. And I think that will be good for them. Will it result in pretty offense on a nightly basis? No, but I think it will aid their long-term development. What do you think? Like, what have you seen from the Nets rookies in that regard? And what is your expectation entering this regular season opener?
Yeah, man, I think you hit it on the head. The Nets are integrating 3 young guards into the lineup. There will be growing pains. And like you said, a lot of that was on display in the Toronto game. And once these regular season games start, then these young guards are going to have to hold their own against some of the best perimeter defenders in the league over the course of an 82-game season. So there will be growing pains. There's going to be games where, you question why these guys are on the court. But I think what the Nets are hoping on is, trial by fire, and in the end, they'll come out better for it.
Yeah, and they, this draft was kind of throwing darts at a dartboard, and you got 4 guys, 3 point guards, and another guy in Danny Wolf, who was effectively a 6'11" point guard at Michigan. And, you picked like 4 of those guys who can handle the ball, obviously 1 a big man, 3 like guards or wing size, and you're hoping that 1 or 2 of them stick. And I think that all of these guys are going to get opportunities. They're going to be pushed to their limits, and we'll see who comes out on the other side looking like they can be an NBA piece. But that's part of what, despite this being, a projected tanking season for the Nets, is going to make it exciting, is getting to see these rookie guys and having these potential future pieces to look towards that we really didn't have last season. Like you and me know, like covering the beat last year, it was a tanking season, and there were a lot of guys who, it was just a conversation of, are these guys going to be traded? Now we got some of that, but we got more so these rookies that it's going to be exciting to see how they develop. But CJ, appreciate you taking the time as always, man. And we will definitely, have you back on as the season progresses, but appreciate you taking the time. That does it for today's episode of Locked On Nets. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk with CJ outlining our bold predictions for this 2025-26 Nets campaign. If you do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy the content, take 1 second right now. Smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. But the regular season's here. We're going to have talk and coverage of all that when I'm back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.